Tonight, a full slate of stories shaping politics, security, and Canada's future, from U.S. President Trump sinking suspected drug-running boats to
Pierre Poilievre completes a major shakeup of the Conservative campaign team.
and to Sweden making a fresh pitch for its Gripen fighter jet as Canada eyes the U.S. F-35. We're digging into what matters, why it matters, and what Canadians should watch for next.
From Sherman Oaks, California, I'm Eddie Tekalik.
And from Montreal, I'm Gary MacDonald. And this is episode 61 of Night Talk Canada. Now let's get started. We begin tonight with a story that's making waves worldwide. President Trump authorizing U.S. forces to strike and sink fishing boats suspected of smuggling drugs in international waters. Now, supporters call it decisive action. Critics call it legally shaky and dangerously escalatory. The U.S. has been sinking these suspected drug runners in international waters on Trump's direct orders. Now, the legality is disputed under international maritime law and U.S. constitutional authority. Congress has not granted explicit approval, raising questions about presidential overreach, and that's not the first time that phrase has come in. Critics warn the U.S. has provided little public evidence the boats were actually carrying drugs. So, why does it matter? Well, this is a rare instance of a major power using military force against civilian fishing vessels outside wartime. What the U.S. does here sets precedents that could be invoked by other nations, including adversaries, and it has big implications for maritime law, sovereignty, and global drug interdiction norms. So, let's get down to business and just have a look at the arguments that are for it from a legal perspective. Mm-hmm. If I can remember where I put them. Here we go. All right. So, the U.S. can act under long-standing drug interdiction authorizations that don't require congressional approval. Maritime law allows interdiction of stateless vessels suspected of trafficking. And national security urgency can justify immediate presidential action. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of kind of openings there that you could drive a Mack truck through, I'm sure.
Pretty much.
So, against. International law requires clear evidence a vessel is engaged in illicit activity, evidence the U.S. has not presented publicly. As a matter of fact, there's been very little evidence at all, other than a couple of pictures they have released. Sinking a civilian vessel is arguably excessive force inconsistent with maritime proportionality rules. And Congress, not the president, once again, here we go, Congress, not the president, holds war-making powers, and lethal force against non-military targets may exceed executive authority. Right. So, moving on from that, I decided I'd play a little what if. What would Canada do if the U.S. sank a vessel in our territorial waters? And if you think that's out of the question, give your head a shake, because It's not. So, what if? Well, number one, we would demand a formal investigation and a formal explanation through the U.S. State Department, the U.S. ambassador in Ottawa, good luck with that one, and or a formal diplomatic note. Now, this step establishes the legal record that Canada sees the action as a violation of sovereignty, which it is. Number two, public condemnation and summoning the ambassador. This is standard when an ally crosses a line. Canada could publicly condemn the action, then summon the U.S. ambassador in Ottawa for an explanation. Number 3, demand a joint investigation and request the White House clarify whether the order came directly from President Trump. This signals seriousness with escalating militarily. Canada could, as I say, request or insist on a binational investigation, Canada and the U.S., including access to U.S. intelligence, claiming the vessel was carrying drugs, a reconstruction of events such as location, warning shots, identification, and so on. And if the U.S. refuses, it becomes a much bigger political issue. Number 4, invoke international maritime law, giving Canada the option of taking legal or diplomatic action through the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea or the International Maritime Organization. Canada's position would be, even if the boat was carrying drugs, the U.S. had no right to use lethal force in Canadian territorial waters without our explicit consent. Okay, let's move on to the next grouping. Number 5, NORAD and military implications. All right. We could quietly or publicly demand a review of NORAD operating rules, new restrictions on U.S. maritime or aerial operations near Canadian waters, a have to no joint naval exercises until the matter is resolved. And while allies, this incident definitely would trigger serious defense policy conversations. Number 6, temporary freeze on cooperation. Without fully breaking cooperation, Canada could suspend certain intelligence sharing lines, pause joint maritime patrols, slow or freeze cross-border law enforcement operations like the RCMP and the DEA and the RCMP and the U.S. Coast Guard. This would be a strong signal without harming long-term alliances. Number 7, potential legal action. Canada could pursue International Court of Justice action if the U.S. agreed to jurisdiction, which is highly unlikely. Compensation claims if the crew was comprised of Canadian nationals, and wrongful death or negligence investigations, even if symbolic. These actions carry political weight. And number 8, escalatory options unlikely but technically available. Canada has the right to escort U.S. vessels out of Canadian waters, deploy the Royal Canadian Navy to the area, and challenge U.S. claims publicly. Now, these would be last resort measures because they risk military tension with our once closest ally. So
and that point is important.
Very much important. Very, very much so important. So we go from there to realistically, if this happened, what would the real life sequence be? Okay, well, there are a couple of things. I've got notes all over the place. The first one would be demand, again, immediate diplomatic explanation. And, you go all through these things again. But the most likely response, realistically, would be this. Number 1, immediate Canadian protest. Number 2, a demand for the joint investigation. Number 3, insistence on seeing U.S. intelligence. Number 4, public criticism, but controlled tone. Number 5, a negotiated resolution where the U.S. expresses regret, offers compensation, and promises better coordination. I promise to be a good boy going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Canada would almost certainly avoid open military confrontation, but it would not let the issue slide. So that is where we stand on that aspect of it. And it's the thing that has really caught my attention, Eddie, is as I was working through this week, is the fact that, again, I can't emphasize this enough. Very little, if any, evidence has been offered up by the U.S. government to back up the claims that these all were boats carrying drugs. I saw one series of pictures, but it was taken by some kind of rights organization, and I just don't remember the name of it, where they took a piece of video that was released by the U.S., one of the few pieces of video released by the U.S., and they did a frame-by-frame breakdown trying to zero in on discovering evidence. And I don't think they were that successful. Like, if you've got a boat loaded with stuff, you blow it out of the water, there's always debris floating before it sinks, right? And
well, not only that, even, I mean, if they're in capsule format, and you probably got tens of thousands of capsules packed in bags after getting blown up, these things be floating all over the place.
Yeah,
you would think, right?
Yeah. So a couple of other things I found out here, Eddie. The latest body count we have is at least 83 people have been killed, and this includes one missing survivor who is presumed dead. These casualties occurred across at least 21 strikes on 22 vessels in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific. Survival, we only have 2 known survivors who were captured and repatriated to their home countries, Ecuador and Colombia.
And we've heard little from them or from the governments about these 2 survivors or what they've had to say or anything at all, which I find very suspicious, very off-putting. Like, why, are they being kept quiet? Are they told to be quiet? Who's telling them to be quiet? I mean, all these questions come up, especially when you have both Colombian and Venezuelan governments, basically saying, United States, what are you doing? You're blowing up fishing boats. I would have expected a little more from those governments, and really haven't seen it besides just, screaming on the outset and then backing off and not saying much, unless I'm missing the picture here.
No, you're not missing the picture. Let me bring up a couple of more points that I found. The victims appear to be desperate workers, not cartel leaders. Military legal advisors were overruled, apparently, by political officials. There's been no transparency to Congress or the public. The strikes lack the hallmarks of lawful military action. No armed conflict exists. No congressional authorization was obtained. Minimal evidence has been provided. International law standards for use of force don't appear to be met. Legal experts and the UN have raised concerns about potential war crimes. And whether it's, when we were talking about this late last week, about doing this segment, and I said, murder on the high seas. And I went in and asked a couple of our AI tools, could this be classed as murder on the high seas? And Claude came back with, whether it's technically murder is a legal question that would require judicial proceedings to determine definitively, but the circumstances strongly suggest these are extrajudicial killings, people executed based on suspicion without trial, evidence, or due process.
Yeah, that's, you read the eight steps. What happens if the United States attacked our territory? Okay,
right.
Fentanyl, and this is drugs pouring over our borders, which is not true, into the United States, which is what triggered this entire tariff war. And you know what? Could the United States turn on our ship traffic within 100 kilometers? I think it's 100 or 150 kilometers from our shore. It depends on where we are. In passing those coastal borders, and potentially attacking a ship that they suspect to carry of people carrying drugs. Um, you know what? Our Coast Guard is pretty proficient. I think we can take care of things on our own. If the United States had an issue or concern about something like that, we're supposed to be allies and partners. Let us know, and we'll take care of business. And today we're talking about potential drug trafficking on the ocean on the Canadian.
Oh,
We're all, we always seem to be fighting with about salmon and territorial water for salmon fishing. What's next? You're going to blow up a fishing boat that's stealing salmon from supposed American waters. I mean, the list can go on. And I think at the end of the day, Gary, those 8 points there, they make perfect sense for us to follow those 8 points. Our problem is all of those 8 points, in my opinion, my humble opinion, based on what I've seen in Trump 2.0 and Trump 1.0 for that fact, is every one of those points speak on the side of common sense and speak on the side of um, the law, right? In order for
yes.
two parties to practice the law, the prosecutor and the defendant, you have to follow certain rules that actually dictate and define what the word of law is. When one of those sides just completely, and arbitrarily continues to ignore the rule of law, whether it's whether it's municipal, whether it's state, whether it's federal, whether it's international, and just continuously ignore what the rest of the legal world, governed by multitude of world governing bodies, are saying that what you're doing is illegal, and it's still falling on deaf ears, Gary, those 8 points, even if Venezuela and or Colombia in this particular case pursued each and every one of those, it's falling on deaf ears. They might have
Yep.
pursued each and every one of these. We're not hearing about it because it's falling on deaf ears, and the law just doesn't seem to apply. Um, I mean, how different is this to local police forces in whatever country suspecting somebody of trafficking drugs and kill them just on the suspicion? I mean, obviously, that would be considered murder. If that was something that was done in a city, in a state, that would be considered murder. I just don't understand why something like that is not considered murder when you're just going out and blowing up ships that you have absolutely zero evidence and produced zero evidence that, in fact, that you're blowing up drug traffickers in these high speed boats. And even then, Gary, um, if you can launch a missile that costs $250,000 to blow up a fishing boat with probably one engine and two fuel tanks in it, that can't get very far, that you're going to spend $250,000 blowing up that boat, how difficult is it to get a patrol boat out there and arrest these people and then follow due process?
Exactly.
Like seriously, you fire one of these missiles that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, send out one of your patrol boats that has an M50 machine gun on it. Let me tell you, that boat's going to stop very, very quickly. If they do fight back, okay, fine, there's cause. But I just cannot believe that they have all the necessary intelligence on a 20-foot, 25-foot boat with single engine boat in some cases, that these people are trafficking drugs. How much drugs can a small boat like that actually traffic? And how far can it actually get off a beach or off a small harbor in a coastal town in Venezuela? Where is it going to go on a tank of gas or even a barrel of gasoline? Trinidad? Like I just don't get it. So for me, Gary, those 8 points, even if they did blow up something in Canadian waters, I don't think those points would. We would pursue each and every one of them aggressively, and so we should. I just don't think with this particular administration they'd listen to any of these things. And I mean, you mentioned calling the ambassador to Canada in, right? And you look at some of the comments that Pete Hextra makes on a daily basis about Canadians and the way we conduct business and how we're hurting his feelings and so on and so forth. He doesn't really care, Gary.
No.
And look, like I'm sitting here in my yes, I'm in the United States, everybody. I said I wasn't going to do it, but here I am, and one exception we made is family. This is a family event that we decided to go to. And you know what, in speaking to our cousins and relatives here, they are also equally pained by what they're seeing throughout the United States, and equally pained in seeing what's happening with these international affairs, and what we seem to, in a majority of the cases, most countries that are looking at this, calling it murder on the high seas, Gary. And when we doing in terms of our shows, and I saw this light in your eye come up and say murder on the high seas, you didn't have to tell me what it was about. I knew exactly what it was about. And it's just really, really sad that you have this gargantuan military just bombing the shit out of small little fishing boats. You know what? There was 20 fishing boats. You know what? Possibly one of them could have been transporting drugs. Does that mean that 80 people have to lose their lives? Does that mean that 70 innocent people lost their lives and 10 criminals lost their lives? Well, the last time I checked, we didn't execute criminals until they were actually convicted of something. So that it bothers, as a human being, it bothers me in terms of what I'm actually seeing happening out there. United States of American military might picking on the little guy down there, and I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, Gary.
Knowing that they're not going to fight back. Let's see. We have a quick comment. If you do have any comments, do you consider it murder on the high seas, and the fact that what's happening here is illegal, no matter what way you turn it? Let us know in the comments. Let's bring up this comment. Deborah says, "What happened to innocent until proven guilty?" That went out the window a couple of months ago when they started firing up the bombs on these fishing boats. But it really is a good point in the fact that, is that not one of the hallmarks that America is built on? Is the fact that you get your due process in law, and that you're innocent until proven guilty? Is that not one of the hallmarks? And let me ask you this, Eddie. This time last year, after he was elected and waiting to be sworn in, if you recall, it was just around this time when he started shooting off about the Canadian border, the weak defense that we have at the Canadian border, and the fentanyl and everything. And he's also, but he's kind of smoothed it over a bit with the Chinese leadership now, but he very abruptly and loudly pointed the finger at China as a source of the fentanyl coming in through Canada and then going south of the border to the U.S. Well, which is all well and good. So if you're taking on fishing boats with people who definitely are not hard leaders or members of the various cartels, and I get the cartels are a threat. There's no I'm not disputing that. But if you're doing that to unarmed fishing boats, and you're concerned about fentanyl still coming into the U.S., which it is, then why don't you fire off a couple of missiles at some of the container ships that are coming over from China, because those containers are loaded with fentanyl and everything else? I don't see anything like that happening, and nor is it even
because they can fire back very quickly. They can fire back very quickly.
Yeah. Exactly. Once again, the bully in the schoolyard character comes through. I don't get the elected representatives in Congress, any of them, whether it's in Congress or the Senate. Why in the hell, including, and especially Republicans, they can't all be brain dead? Why are they not speaking up? Why are they not mounting a force to rein this guy in his ensemble that he has around him in the White House. It is, I don't care how you want to spin it. Bring in all the spin doctors that you can.
Yeah, China will punch back. They're attacking these smaller countries that really can't defend themselves. And the question is, why hasn't Congress tried to stop what's going on? Um, what is it that's preventing them from stopping what's going on? And it's consistently happening, not just with this particular incident in the high waters, in the open ocean. This is just something that they have zero appetite to put a stop to, no matter what this administration does throughout the country. Unfortunately, I mean, it's almost like let's break the law first and beg for forgiveness later type of attitude, and just about everything that's been going on there since. Since he was put back into power just this past January.
Yeah.
There's just zero appetite. You know what? Is money talking here? Yeah, probably. Are threats talking here? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Is coercion talking here? Yeah, probably. Protectionism? Yeah, absolutely. I might lose my job. Yeah, I don't want to get him on my bad side. So there's a lot of individual things that just seems to be permeating the entire Congress, the House there, that no one is willing to stick their head out and rally people around a particular issue. So at least there is a concise effort to push something through. Gary, fortunately and unfortunately, the only thing we've seen Congress in Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0, the only thing they got together is for these Epstein files. That is it. That is it. And most of this has to do with the congressmen knowing they're going to be going into elections next November, I believe it is, knowing that their constituents want this information. So they got together and agreed, because I don't want to lose my job next time coming around. I mean, can it be that self-centered a choice that nothing gets done about this?
Yes.
Meanwhile, everything else. So yeah. So meanwhile, you have states just, you have military going into the states. I mean, we know the stories are. We're not going to go through that again. Unjustifiably, courts basically saying you can't do it, and they're saying, well, sorry, we're going to do it anyway. And it's just nonstop bullying, if you want to put it like you said, of no, I'm not going to say American people. It's just bullying of the entire planet. And I think way back in Trump 1.0, one of the first things that I thought of, and you and I didn't have the pleasure of meeting at that point yet, I was having these discussions with my dad. And, he's experienced World War II. He knows what fascism is. When, his village in Slovenia was basically run over by different armies every 6 months, and he'd have to go to different schools. So he knows what a bully is. He knows what fascism is. And you know what? My dad is used to authoritarian governments because he lived under that, and plus he's lived under Marshal Tito under a quasi-communist rule, so he knows what that is. And there's a certain element of discipline that comes with it, but then there's the other side of it, which is absolute authoritarian rule. And he came out and said, you know what, this is not that far from authoritarian. Sometimes the country needs discipline. I mean, that's the way he spoke sometimes. But he recognized that the United States and Donald Trump were authoritarian. And you know what? It's very difficult to argue with my dad about something like that, even though he was a pro-Trump supporter, believe it or not. He saw him as an authoritarian. Okay, and that kind of set the tone in terms of my listening to what was going on in the United States and other parts of the world. Brazil was a point of interest as well for me,
Right.
as to how these authoritarian governments were starting to evolve. It happened in Trump 1.0. You know what? When Biden was in power, I'll call it Trump 1.5, because he was still governing and ruling the Republican Party, even though he was not the president. He basically was calling the shots. How the hell does a guy call the shots when he's not sitting in the big chair unless he's got something on people, money, coercion, all kinds of wonderful things that I classified back then to my dad as a mob boss. And he looked at me and he goes, "You mean like Al Capone?" I said, "Yeah, if you can relate to that." He goes, "Yeah, like Al Capone." So, God bless my father who passed away a few years ago. We did get into some very heavy, heated arguments and debates, but I'm speaking with someone who was raised in a very difficult time. He's a World War II child, went through a lot of hell, and
Right.
he's seen and lived under an authoritarian rule. So, yeah, the whole place sounds and smells like it's run by him. It's run the country. Unfortunately, the United States of America can very easily be compared to the way a mob boss runs a country, and the United States is far better than that. People are far better than what is being portrayed of the United States right now, based on what's happening in Trump 2.0. It's just rather sad and rather unfortunate that innocent people are getting beaten up and blown out of the water for God knows what reason. And suffice it to say, I mean, there's always rumors about why is he doing all of these things, and continuously on ABF, anything but Fox. Most of the media, most of the information you pick up online from streaming channels and whatnot from very reliable people and respectable people. It all comes down to just absolute effort to control and an ego that's basically running the entire country, which is really, really, really sad. And I know the United States can come out of this mess, but it'll take them a long time because you know as well as I do, Gary, it's easy to earn respect. It's very difficult to win it back once you've lost it, and that's just rather unfortunate for the United States as a people. I'm not going to say the United States as a government right now, and I think things are going to get continuously worse. And I'm really, really hoping that uh, calmer heads and smarter heads prevail in Congress and put a stop to this insanity. Blowing innocent people out of the water, killing innocent people is just it's just insane. I'm sorry for going on about this,
No,
Gary, but
no.
I've been giving this a lot of thought since I landed in the United States, and I've met nothing but wonderful people. The border guard was a little tense with us, but at the end of the day, he said, "Have a nice day." It really hurts. It's just rather unfortunate with the way the rest of the world views the United States these days. It's too sad.
But I also think it's unfortunate that the rest of the world is not speaking up about what's taking place on the high seas right now
Right.
without any
Why do you
real
think that? Why do you
evidence.
think that is, though? Why do you think that is, though?
Because I think that a lot of countries now have been bullied so much just on the trade front that they're afraid to speak up. A lot of smaller countries, and then you have Europe, which is dealing with the whole Ukraine and Russian conflict, and the fact that Trump is nosing in there, trying to probably shoot for next year's Nobel Peace Prize. So there, I think in a lot of cases you have people who are not up to the same level of being able to stand up to a bully that others are, who are running some of the smaller countries, and they don't want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
He's not paying any attention to them. Why draw attention to yourself, sort of thing. Let's just go back. We have another comment here, too. I just want to get the comment on. Monel says, how about they start dealing with the fentanyl problem at the source, and that's the American people that are actually all on fentanyl and using it, purchasing it, and what have you. And I would agree with you on that one, Monel. And, there you go. Like Deborah what happened to innocent until proven guilty. And why aren't you dealing with the problem on your own shores before you go out into international waters? If this, let's put this in perspective for a moment, Eddie, and I'm probably going to step on a few toes. I don't know, and I don't care. The fact of the matter is, if this was another country, say a Mideast country, if this, let's just call it the way it is. Say this was Israel blowing boats like this out of the water for whatever the, pardon the pun, trumped up reason was.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that'd be another indictment in the world court on Netanyahu?
Yeah.
Putin. Putin has a number over his head now too. Although it was not exercised when Trump had his so-called summit with Putin in Alaska a few months ago. It was not exercised. He could have been arrested right there.
Mm-hmm.
So why is Trump allowed to get away with this? Why has not a country or a group of countries pushed for the same sort of thing and put a warrant over his head?
True.
Because essentially, to me, I've not seen, and if somebody has it, our email address is at the end of the stream. Send it to us. The evidence. I have not seen any hard, solid evidence that these boats are in fact carrying large quantities of drugs. And, based on the way he operates, he loves the media and the attention whenever.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had something solid, you don't think there'd be a big production number as far as the news conference was concerned and everything, where they'd have the stuff all lined up like a lot of our, the police forces do, both in Canada and the US when they make a major drug bust.
Mm-hmm.
And the weapons and the cash and everything else, they line it up so the media can come in and do B-roll on it and do the interviews. And you don't think if he had something really solid,
he'd be putting it out. Yeah.
Exactly. So I come back around. Is it murder on the high seas? Is he committing murder through his executive order or whatever the hell the document is? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But to me, there seems to be a double standard here within the world. And again, it's because a lot of the smaller countries, I think, are afraid of him. And maybe they're afraid of him because you just don't know which way it's going to swing. You know what Premier Doug Ford's favorite phrase is, and I won't repeat it, although I love it.
Does it have something to do with crackers?
Crackers and cheese.
Crackers and cheese, yeah.
But yeah, maybe they're saying, well, we just don't know how he's going to react if he's blowing these fishing boats out of the water without any real evidence.
What else is he capable of?
Yeah, what else is he capable of if we call him on it? There's that side of it too. Again, coming back to the bully side of it. But I am at a total loss for words as to why countries are not speaking up against this particular action. Yeah, you know what? If you've got the cartels there, go after the cartels. No problem. It's game on.
Right.
For a whole lot of reasons, including the fact that they are pushing the drugs through. But that also brings up another point. Just the drugs that are still getting into the United States, and not all through the Canadian border, nor were they ever, kind of makes you really shake your head and look at the whole thing. It's all a smoke screen, smoke and mirrors, and light reflecting off all of that phony gold all over the Oval Office. Like, it's just.
Yeah. Well, it's like
I can't believe I'm living this
yes.
world, this fantasy world. It's just,
Yeah. You know what? It's constantly deflect. You know,
right.
is he blowing boats out of the water because he needs the public to deflect to something else, or he needs the world to deflect to something else? You know, is any of his actions these days one way to deflect out of what the man is dealing with today? And it's just his administration or his very close minions in his cabinet. Is that all they're there to do, is to help the president continue deflect away from the failures or inconsistencies of how this government is running? And the sad part is, if there is anything that government has done well, everything else that he's doing wrong just completely negates it. That's how I'm looking at it. Just constantly deflecting or trying to take credit for other people's work, or enjoying other people's misery, and he's not shy about saying things that reflect that. And you know what? You look at this particular administration, right? To Trump 2.0. The man's gonna kick the bucket probably sooner rather than later. What does the United States do when it forms its next government to prevent Trump 2.0 from ever happening again?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? Okay, you're going to put laws in place that'll prevent the president from doing things he's not supposed to do. Well, there are laws in place right now that prevent the president from doing what he's doing, and he's ignoring judges' orders. He's ignoring senators. He's ignoring what Congress is saying you can't do, but he's still going ahead with it anyway, right? And I think he's pretty much managing his affairs now, just like he did when he was CEO of his company. He just didn't care. He just bulldozed and did what he wanted to do. And we'll worry about it later. And maybe something's going to catch up to me and pay this person off. We'll continue breaking the rules as long as I can continue winning and getting my way. Very, very similar approach to the way he's governing. So again, how does the United States prevent a Trump 3.0, which, you know, they're talking about it, but or somebody replacing Trump, a Vance 3.0, if you want to call it. I don't know.
God.
Or a Pee Wee German, Miller, running roughshod and running a government like this. How does a country prevent this from happening unless you walk in with a gun and handcuffs and say that's enough? Because, I mean, quite frankly, Gary, I don't know what else is going to stop this person. You know?
Yeah, the insanity, the madness.
And the fact that, and you're right, the fact that we're seeing it and going through this and feeling this frustration side by side with our American neighbors, it's just so frustrating. You can't get your hands on it, you can't get your feelings around it. It's just so sad to see. So sad to see.
It really is. And you know, I think with that we'll wrap it up. One thing though, if you're watching this later this weekend, by all means, please leave some comments and let us know what you think. Do you think that in fact that maybe he should be pulled before the international courts and made to justify, put on trial, whatever? Like, what is it going to take to stop some of this madness? Because today it's fishing boats alleged to be drug runners. What's it going to be tomorrow? That's the real question here. So,
yeah.
With that, please, by all means, let us know what you think. Leave the comments. We do monitor the comments after the fact, and we do respond to them as well after the fact, and we'd like to hear from you. So,
yeah.
Okay. Coming up, guess what? There's been a shakeup in Poilievre's front office. Will it solidify his position going into the January leadership review? Well, we'll find out. We'll discuss that in a few minutes. But first, I want to pass along info on a Black Friday Cyber Monday deal from Ecamm Live. That is the app I use for streaming Night Talk Canada and recording work with clients. It's a Mac-only app that gives you full video broadcast production ability on your Mac. Now you can get more information on the super 40% off all annual plans for new customers. That's a really good bargain. Plus a 14-day free trial by clicking the affiliate link below. This is just a heads up on a good deal for the app that I've been using for about 7 years now. It's not a paid promotion.
Yeah. And Gary, next on the agenda, Canada's Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre made a major change last week, replacing campaign veteran Jenny Byrne with longtime operative Stephen Outhouse as campaign manager. What does this signal? A shift in message, a tightening of control, or is it just simple election prep recalibration? And who is this Outhouse? Well, he's a longtime Conservative strategist, Gary, with experience in the Harper-era politics and senior operations. Jenny Byrne, the outgoing manager, has faced internal critiques about operational discipline. The switch signals the conservatives are tightening strategy as the minority Liberal government faces the loss of future confidence motion votes.
Well, Eddie, Stephen Outhouse, well, he's scored some major victories. He was behind Danielle Smith's campaign in Alberta. He recently was behind the Conservative success in forming government in Newfoundland and Labrador. The one chink in the armor is his performance as campaign manager in the New Brunswick election last year, where incumbent Premier Blaine Higgs lost a majority government, lost the election, and he stepped down as a result of that. The party has still not chosen a new leader. He's been around Ottawa. He's been doing some. He had a couple of communications companies that he formed and did some work, of course, in Ottawa and elsewhere. He was also an executive assistant, if I remember correctly, to Pierre Poilievre when Poilievre was in Harper's cabinet. And I just can't remember right off the top of my head now. It's just leaves me as to what his portfolio was at the time. But if you go back through, you'll find the list of portfolios that he had, and Outhouse was his executive assistant.
Right.
Now,
Gary, I can't see you.
Oh, sorry. Got talking and
there we go.
Yeah, get wound up. Anyway, and I can't see it changing, but I know in the New Brunswick election campaign, especially the social media ads and campaign that he ran, very, very much negative in nature, very personal at times, and also very, very Republican style.
Mm-hmm.
As we now know, the Republicans, what they're capable of and how they handle things. Very much that way, kind of Republican MAGA or MAGA Republican, whatever you want to call it, mm-hmm. Style. And that did not sit well with New Brunswickers, nor did policy 713 regarding the kids and the use of pronouns and how they wanted to be called at school and what
Right.
have you. That did not sit well with New Brunswickers either, the way that was handled. An outhouse comes in right on the tails of that, boom. So what makes me think he's going to change when it comes time to fire up the campaign plane for the next federal election, which could be any time between late January into February or sometime in the spring. I don't think he is going to change. I don't think that that's his style. Therefore, I would suggest to you, Eddie, that obviously Poilievre may have made a change, but I don't think he made a change for the better. I don't think he's learned his lesson.
No.
As we've discussed, previously on here, that he had lasted about 5 minutes on his first day back after winning the by-election, but back now basically to the same sort of style of politicking that he was, before that. And look at his popularity. As the preferred leader, Carney has opened up an even wider lead in the latest polling to compared to just even a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like Poilievre, and they don't have any faith in him as a prime minister.
Do you think that he made these changes in preparation for the leadership review that's coming up in a couple of months? Maybe he brought him on board to rebuild his portfolio, rebuild his profile and his look within the Conservative Party itself. I mean, he's got to overcome that confidence vote within his own party before we can look forward to any possibility of a federal election, right?
Yeah, no, there's no question that that's part of it, because Jenny Byrne, who ran the campaign back in April in his run previous campaigns, but this one back in April, which turned out to be a disaster, quite frankly. And you had a couple of provincial Conservative premiers who wanted nothing to do with Poilievre. One of them was Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, and the other one, of course, was Ontario Premier Doug Ford. And if you don't have, like it or lump them, if you don't have Doug Ford on board with you,
good luck.
Yeah, seat-rich Ontario, good luck is right. And there's no love lost between Ford and Poilievre, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So Byrne is out, and in the caucus, some of them who were defeated and others who, managed to get reelected, but none of them, there was a real uproar within the caucus about Byrne. She's very, very in your face. And from what I've heard, and based on what I've heard, kind of like it's my way or the highway kind of approach. And that did not sit well with caucus members, especially after blowing a 25-point lead in the polls and not being able to pivot to take on Carney after Trudeau was gone. Even today, if you watch Poilievre during question period, there are times, Eddie, where he's still fighting Trudeau. That seems to be where his focus is. He can't let go of Trudeau. The name keeps coming up. The last 15 years or whatever, Justin Trudeau this, Justin Trudeau that. Let it go, Pierre. Trudeau's gone. He's out of the picture. But they didn't pivot, and of course, like I said, they blew that 25-point lead, and a political newbie leading the Liberal Party didn't get a majority, but he came damn close. And right now, he's managing to hold it together. That's not going to last for very much longer, I don't think, but he's managing to hold it together. If he can hold it together until get into late January or around that time frame, for a little bit after, because the Conservatives will, whatever happens, whether Poilievre, the leadership review does not go well for Poilievre, but even if it does, it'll be interesting to see if they even release the results of the vote as to what kind of support he had. And also you have the Dippers, the NDP, without a leader, and they're not going to have a leader anytime soon, nor do they really want to go to an election anytime soon, because they're probably still paying for the one in April and will be for a while. Federal elections aren't cheap. So I was somewhat shocked that this was the choice, that Outhouse was the choice. I understand the credentials and the connection that Poilievre has with Outhouse, especially after Outhouse being an EA for him. But I don't get it, Eddie. I just don't get where his thought process is. And I don't think it's going to help him at all. And once we're in a campaign, or even before the campaign starts, he's going to have an influence.
Well, you mentioned the styles of both campaign managers. You mentioned Outhouse was abrupt, and you mentioned also he kind of errs in the side of, you mentioned MAGA, Republican MAGA, call it Maple MAGA if you want, for lack of a better word, him being a Canadian, that type of approach and an in-your-face approach. And interestingly enough, you'd also mentioned that Byrne, as a campaign manager who lost 20 some odd points in the last election during the campaign, also had kind of an in-your-face approach to things, right? And you kind of look at it. You look at Poilievre during question period. He tends to resort back to that in-your-face, Trudeau this and previous Liberal Party administrations, in-your-face type of discussion and dialogue. You would think that, A, he would have learned, and we both know he did not learn from his last mistakes. B, he would have learned that style of campaign management and in-your-face approach in terms of direction and coaching the communication that you're supposed to be conveying to the Canadian population should not be the same as the one you've used before, because you lost an election quite handily. You lost your riding. You had to go to almost a bulletproof riding to get your place back in the House of Commons, and you're going right back to your in-your-face style and rhetoric on previous administrations that no longer exist to garner your success moving forward. And you got a Maple MAGA, a boisterous Maple MAGA, and you still kept on staff Byrne on some other lesser role to do what for you? More of the same? Gary, I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like running into a wall and doing it all over again because you forgot how much you hurt the first time. So I think you're absolutely right. You're bang on there. He seems to be surrounding himself with the wrong advice, the wrong people to lead him to the promised land, which I really don't think, and it's unfortunate. I was really hoping the Conservative Party of Canada would really elect a leader with character, with charisma, with credentials, and understood what Canadians wanted. They just didn't do it with Poilievre. I think is a lost cause, but I'm really rooting for the Conservative Party to take a step back, take a look at what they represent in Canada and what they want to represent for Canadians, and put a leader in place that will actually drive that forward and give Carney a run for his money. I'd love to see that, and I just don't think it's going to happen with Poilievre. I really don't.
No, he just signaled the fact that bringing Outhouse in, to me, it's going to be more of the same with maybe a slightly fresher approach, but it's a lost opportunity. And the other part of it is, you may solidify your support in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, or Saskatchewan and Alberta, but those provinces aren't rich in seats like
Yeah.
Ontario and Quebec. And Ontario and Quebec have to be your main foundation to build upon. And I can't see that happening unless there's they've all had the awakening and there's a huge turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see that happening. And that's something, that we're going to have to watch very closely for any sorts of hints of some kind of a turnaround or softening. The thing of it is, one of the things that I think helped Carney to a degree is he brought the Liberals back more to the center.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things you heard about the budget style and, kind of a conservative style budget, blah, blah. The Conservative Party has gone too far to the right.
Yeah.
And it needs to be brought back more to the center because overall, Canadians, for the most part, are pretty straightforward, like
Common sense common
down the
sense in the
center.
middle. You go back and forth wherever
Yeah.
you need to go, but not down to the extreme. And you're right. He got the old, call it liberal Trudeau 1.0. This is Liberal Party 2.0. It's not the same animal anymore.
Yep, exactly. Let's go to the comments. And let's see now. Deborah says Pierre thinks he can lie, bring up the previous administration, unite people with negativity. He forgets he's speaking to Canadians who are more worldly wise and better educated. It will not work. Essentially, where we were going with our last couple of comments before we brought that up. And, well spoken, Deborah. I get exactly where you're coming from on that. And from New Brunswick, our friend Greg, more of the same, but in time it is worth Peter MacKay or Tim Houston, as I doubt Doug Ford would be drawn in and not aware of others.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, really, do you think Houston would have any sorts of designs on federal leadership?
I
think
really don't know.
I think
I
can
see
beyond.
I see Peter MacKay. Yeah, I would say I would have a hard listen of what he would have to say.
I think Peter MacKay is past his shelf life. I've watched him on some of the political panels that he's on now, and very well spoken. And I'm not taking that away from him. I just think that there's been just quite a span of time since he was last in front of the public that way as a politician, and I think that I just kind of sense that when it's time to just step away and let new blood come in. So and Greg just came back with a response here. And that's nope to Tim Houston. I presume that's nope to Tim. Okay. So, yeah. I just, I don't know. I don't hold a lot of hope out for the party if in fact Poilievre survives and he's, they go into the election without House as campaign manager and going down that same road again, maybe modified a bit, maybe polished off a bit more, but I just think that this is what we're going to see. And I think really the Conservative Party of Canada needs to do some navel gazing, watch the, look at the lint in their navels for a while and contemplate life.
I was gonna go there, but I'm glad you did.
And really stop and think, like, where are we going with this? We are not a party of or for Maple MAGAs. We need to come back more. And somebody in conversation mentioned Andrew Scheer, and I said, oh, I know. I was talking with my brother today. And I said, absolutely not. I've watched Scheer's shenanigans on
It
behalf
doesn't
of
do it for me.
Poilievre. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. I have not been impressed with what I've been witnessing from Scheer over the last number of months. So they need somebody from outside coming in, somebody with a solid personality, some smarts, and somebody who's willing to take on the chore of moving the party back a little more to the center, and being able to take on Carney and the Liberals basically on each one on their own turf, but that turf has a very common area down the center. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
I think
that's
so. I
my
think
thought on it.
I think so as well. I mean, someone who hasn't been involved with politics has a wealth of global experience, if you want to put it.
Mhm.
Maybe even another economist. I mean, you know what? With the way things are happening in the world today, it's going to continue happening until Trump 2.0 ends, and maybe then some. Uh, Another solid, well-rounded economist. Okay, they're not the most perfect
Right.
of people, but you know what? In today's world, and us having to deal with the economic issues every day, that's maybe what they have to bring in first. Absolutely, I think it has to be outside, somebody outside of the political sphere, the Canadian political sphere today, that should throw their hat in the ring, or at least the senior conservatives try to recruit somebody of that type of caliber to get the Conservative Party to where they need to be, because they've certainly lost they've certainly lost their way, at least in my opinion, as a swing voter. You know.
Right. No, I totally agree. So again, if you're watching after the fact, by all means, let's keep the conversation going down below in the comments section. Whether it's on YouTube you're watching or over on Facebook, leave your comments. We'd love to get the comments, and as I say, we do review them, and we will respond to comments as well after the fact, not only during the show. So anyway. Up next, this is going to be interesting too, this one. And that is jet controversy, fighter jet controversy. But before we do that, I just want to take and give you a heads up on Black Friday, Cyber Monday offers from my web hosting service, WHC. WHC has a number of offers on web-based services for new customers. You can get more information by clicking the affiliate link below. This is my recommendation. It is not a paid membership. Oh, we lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There we go. As you know, Gary, Sweden has renewed its push for Canada to consider the Gripen fighter jet, even as Canada remains committed to the US built F 35. This is about more than just the aircraft, it's about cost, sovereignty, and, Gary, most importantly, alliances.
Absolutely. And the F-35 offers advanced stealth, interoperability with NATO, and long-term U.S. support. Canada's procurement is underway, but the debate continues politically and publicly. And just last week, of course, we had Sweden's royalty in Montreal and Ottawa making a pitch, along with executives from Saab and other business people, all in making a pitch once again to have Canada reconsider the decision to buy F-35s and go with the Gripen instead.
Right.
And it's, we're committed to, is it 16 or 18 F-35 so far?
Yeah.
And,
Gary, just a heads up, I don't see you again.
oh, yeah, okay. There we go. One of these
There we
days
go.
I'll get it straight.
That's all right.
Yeah. We're committed to the first purchase, which I understand now is now behind schedule, and costs have increased significantly.
And that's 16 birds that are still under construction, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then like I still don't get part of it, like where if we want to make some changes to software and things like that, we have to get permission from the lords that be south of the border. I thought we were buying the aircraft outright,
No, not the case.
And it doesn't seem like there's a lot now. Some officials are coming out and saying that so there will be some spin-offs here in Canada for this, economic spin-offs, but I don't see that. And the way I understand it is that in some cases, when the plane is due for certain refits, they have to be taken out of service and sent to the U.S. for the refits.
And the refits are very costly and time-consuming as well, from what I've read on the product.
Right. So, like, where are we coming out ahead there? And the whole thing, one of the pushes from the U.S. ambassador and a retired Canadian general, who actually apparently worked as a lobbyist for Lockheed Martin on this project, is that there's the NATO interoperability in NORAD. But here's the thing: the other side of it is, Eddie, is over in Europe, they're operating with the Gripen, and they've got the French jet. There's a German
Eurofighter, the Raphael, the Mirages. They've got everything out there.
Yeah, so I don't see where that comes into play at all. I really don't get that. And let's see now. I had a couple of charts here. Here we go. A couple of charts. The acquisition cost escalation. If you go back to 2023, and by the way, this deal has been on the table. Peter MacKay, the other day, I was watching him when he was commenting on issues like this. He was defense minister when they made the commitment to go with the F-35. And that was back, what year did he say it was? 2012, in the back of my mind.
Something like that,
yeah. But it was back there. So the original estimate was $19 billion. Then the current estimate as of June 2025, we're now up to $27.7 billion. And with essential upgrades, we're up to $33.2 billion.
Yeah.
It just keeps.
And that's just acquisition costs. This is just acquisition costs and getting the damn thing built and delivered. That doesn't even speak to all the costs after that to maintain it.
Right.
When you're doing cost comparisons between different products, like, wow.
And here's an estimated cost per flight hour in US dollars. The F-35, $35,000 per flight hour. And the Gripen is estimated at $25,000 US per hour. So about a $10,000 difference. I also understand that the Gripen is much better equipped to fly and land and take off in cold Arctic conditions. It was designed around that, whereas the F-35, not quite so much. It's
and the F-35 pretty much needs a runway. The Gripen can land on less than optimal conditions.
Roads.
Again, yeah, it all comes down to what is it that you need to defend the country, and how good of a product that you need, and then you kind of take a look at the costs associated with it. But
Yeah.
I like that. I like that graph you just put up, the $35,000, $25,000 comparison.
Now, a couple of other things, and they're on the Gripen side. There's not a lot of hard numbers associated with it, but the acquisition cost $27.7 billion for the F-35 and rising. All it says in the Gripen proposal is significantly lower. Life cycle cost $73.9 billion Canadian. Again, the Gripen is claiming to be 1/6 of the F-35. Economy model, competitive bidding risk, guaranteed 100% offset for the Gripen. Estimated jobs, this is kind of telling, 150,000 person years for the F-35. Whereas the Gripen, they're saying between 6,000 and 10,000 jobs, not person hours, but jobs here in Canada as a spin-off, because they're willing to build a plant here for one thing, and of course any upgrading and everything would be done here. And it seems to me, as part of the proposal they pitched last week when they were here, was that they would offload some of the orders that they're getting from Europe over to here, because they don't have enough facilities in Sweden to get the jets built and out the door on time. So, and that's the other thing, timing.
So not only are we going to be building fighter jets for Canada, we're also going to be building fighter jets on behalf of Saab for their other customers worldwide, correct?
Right.
That's now that's serious.
and they, they're tied in with Bombardier here. Mm-hmm. They're tied in with the name of the other company escapes me, and there's an Aerotex company in Nova Scotia that they've been talking to. So they're really getting out and tying in this way. Now, here's the other thing on this chart: tech control. The F-35 U.S. controlled black box. U.S. controlled black box. The Gripen, full Canadian sovereignty. Make whatever changes you want when you want. You configure it for your needs, what you perceive your needs are at the time. Then they're quite willing to use that to sell the Gripen elsewhere and build that technology in. So, like when you start looking at some aspects of that, it really makes you stop and think about what is going on with this F-35. And yes, it may have been the deal, the good deal.
At the time.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
But things have changed since then.
Quite significantly. And you know what? It comes down to, Gary, I mean, our defense, you'd like to think that, it should be no expense should be spared in our defense and getting the best possible aircraft available for a country like ours. And I don't think you would argue with something like that. What's the point of buying an airplane that qualifies as a 5 out of 10 and you put it against an airplane that's a 9 out of 10? It's just not going to work when the chips are down and bullets are flying, right? So, you got to try to get an aircraft that can perform for what you actually need when you actually have to conduct warfare on a defensive or on an offensive scale against another country, or as part of a global force, like we saw during the campaign in Iraq.
Right.
or the campaigns in Bosnia during the Bosnian War. So it goes to your statement, where you had the ambassador and the fellow representing Lockheed Martin saying, well, I have to take into consideration aircraft configurations, and we should have the same type of model aircraft for the sake of NORAD or NATO operations. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, we saw the international military cooperate with each other using different types of equipment from all manufacturers to do a job. And it didn't matter what aircraft it was; they went out there to do the job. Just like our CF-18s went out there and they contributed to the war effort. So you look at the F-35 and you look at the Gripen. Okay, can both get the job done? Well, according to both manufacturers, absolutely, for exactly what Canada needs: cold, weathered environment, military aircraft for our defense. Lockheed Martin says our airplane can do the same thing. Yet to be proven, I guess. I don't know how they would measure that. And then, you know what? How much are you willing to spend now versus how much can you spend later after you acquire them? Based on some of the graphs you demonstrated and the charts you demonstrated, Gary, taking an F-35 and keeping it and maintaining it and upgrading it is a very, very expensive prospect compared to what you've said and what I've seen. A Gripen upgrade is more turnkey, where you can take the aircraft out of operation and within no time get the upgrade done and it's ready to go back in the air. What's the point of owning a Corvette if it's going to be in the garage every 2 months and you can't drive it? That type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know what? I'm not a military expert. I'm not an aviation expert, engineer, or anything like that. I kind of go with what's presented to me. I know it's a very, very difficult decision, Gary. You've already spent oodles of money on 16 aircraft that were supposed to be delivered and they're behind schedule. We already seem to be building hangars and getting involved with training our pilots to fly these F-35s. And we talked about this in a previous show months ago. So we're going to have our pilots run and operate on 2 different platforms, which essentially in itself can become very expensive. But you kind of say to yourself, here we have a fleet of 16 that we're committed to. And then you've got a fleet of 65 of we don't know what it's going to be. Let's say, for argument's sake, it is going to be the Gripen E or whatever else. Let's just say Gripen E. Well, 65 versus, 64 versus 16 aircraft. Can you operate 2 platforms? It's going to be a little expensive because cross-training is not the easiest of things to do with pilots, because you're risking your life up there and you're risking the lives of other people below you. You have to be extremely familiar with the aircrafts. Or something both you and I had talked about, sharing a drink. Let's just sell the 16 we've already purchased to another desperate country out there. Well, you know what? Donald Trump said he's going to sell F-35s over to the Saudis. Well, you know what? Let's sell it to them. Hey, we got 16 that are ready to go. They were supposed to be delivered last year, but we figure they're going to come anytime soon. Would you like to take these off our hands?
There's
and
one
then
fly
go,
in that
and
ointment.
then go in the direction. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. And then go in the direction and have the same fleet that that our pilots use. What were you
Right.
going to say, Gary?
The fly in the ointment is we probably have to get permission from the U.S. in order to sell them.
Crap. You know what? That thought has not crossed my mind. You're
It
right.
is their technology, and they have control over the black box.
Wow.
I never ever thought of that either until I started doing this graph today. And all of a sudden it hit me like, wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute. But if they're selling it to them anyway, I mean, think about it. If they're selling F-35s, they're going to have some kind of access to their black box. And who the hell knows? Maybe the Saudis are going to sell a couple to the Chinese. They'll take the plane apart, right? And figure it out. So it is just absolutely, I don't know. It's messy. And you know what? I wouldn't want to be in the people's shoes that have to make this decision. A decision was made back in 2012, which at that time, I have to have the confidence it was the right decision made at that particular given time. And you're 1,000% right, Gary. The times have changed. whether it's whether it's a technology and how military campaigns would be run, how the defense of a country would be undertaken. All of that has changed with the outbreak of the various conflicts we've seen in the last 15 years. That whatever was good in 2012 is no longer applicable now. But we also have to take the political and economical warfare that's being undertaken throughout the entire world right now, perpetuated by the United States of America. You also have to take that into consideration. Now, I, for one, don't want to put my Team Canada cap on and say, you know what, let's not buy them from the United States because they're screwing us over with their tariff and their economic and declaring economic warfare on Canada. I don't want to go down that path, okay? Because it's very easy to do that. I would like to have the confidence that our decision makers are going to get an aircraft that's going to do the job for what we need as Canada to defend ourselves, and who knows who we need to defend ourselves, whether it's coming from the north or whether it's coming from the south in a different way. Coming over the Arctic, that's what I meant to say. Us to be able to do that, and B, ensure our commitments to the NATO alliance and what we have to contribute as a country to this alliance to keep peace in the world best way we possibly can. Is that the F-35 or is that the Gripen? I really don't know, but based on the rough information that you've just demonstrated, Gary, and thanks for that, and what I've actually read on my own in terms of the F-35 and the Gripen, tough choice. I would kind of tend to lean towards the Gripen because at the end of the day, the money, the numbers don't make sense to continue with an F-35 project, short term or long term.
Well, I was reading some comments probably about a week ago, maybe not quite. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and it was a post and talking about the Gripen versus the F-35. And there was one comment that I happened upon, and it really, I just went, I never ever thought of that. And I think this guy is onto something. And that comment was related to, a lot of the talk around the fighters jets maybe were overspending, overbuying, because look at modern warfare. What has been in the air over the Ukraine and over Russia in expanding, and the Ukrainians are getting very good at building these things.
Yeah.
What has been in the air in particular in the last 18 months?
Unmanned drones.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really I was just, laying in bed, flipping through, and I hit this comment, and it was just like I never thought of that. And then I started thinking about all of these things. Maybe we do have to kind of pull back, and regroup a bit, because it's, about 13 years since that decision was made for the F-35s. And as you said, a lot of things have changed. I'm just looking the last 3 years. It was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and next month when they unleashed AI to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
And look at how far that's come in a very, 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 very short span of time.
Right.
And look at the drone warfare and how that's been. And as I say, one thing that I was getting from some of the material I've read is that the Ukrainians are becoming top notch at assembling, designing and assembling drones.
Yeah.
And are very successful with them. So do we need 88 jet fighters, or do we need 40 jet fighters and warehouses across the country full of drones? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And again, whatever we have in terms of aircraft, I don't think there's a disagreement that we need aircraft. Okay. However,
Absolutely.
it has to be an aircraft group that would complement the use of technologies such as drones. If you think about Navy terms, you have a battle fleet that goes out there. It's not just an aircraft carrier. There's an entire armada, a battle group that goes out. I would imagine it's very similar in terms of aircraft. So whatever we do get as a fighter aircraft, ground support, air-to-air combat, whatever it is, you think it has to complement whatever there is in terms of drone technology. Which, by the way, I know Canada has been a forerunner, a front runner in the support of the Ukraine with that type of technology. So it's good to see that as a result of that, the Ukraine is becoming an expert in that particular type of warfare.
Right.
But whatever Gripen F-35, it has to work hand in hand with the drone fleet and the drone strategies.
Yeah, for sure. And Eddie, that's going to do it for episode 61 of Night Talk Canada. Who knew, eh?
Yeah.
Wow, where has the time
That is
gone?
fast. 61. And everyone, thank you for spending time with us. If you enjoyed this stream, hit like, subscribe, and share on YouTube, and like, follow, and share on Facebook. I'm Eddie Tekalik. Good night, everyone.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. Honest, unfiltered Canadian. The conversations we should be having. Night Talk Canada returns in 7 days. Good night.